In the vast, silent expanse of deep space, a transmission crackled through the cosmic background noise. Junho Park leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the flickering holographic display. Something was different about this signal. Something that didn't make sense. The communication center hummed with quiet anticipation. Rows of advanced monitoring equipment tracked countless interstellar frequencies, but this particular transmission stood out. Junho's fingers danced across the control panel, isolating the unusual signal and running complex analysis algorithms. What he discovered made no sense at all. According to the Galactic Archives, humans were nothing more than a theoretical concept. No official record acknowledged their existence as a real civilization. It was as if humanity was a footnote, a whisper of a possibility that had never been confirmed. Junho knew the implications were extraordinary. How could an entire species be classified as non-existent? He pulled up historical databases, cross-referencing the transmission's unique signature with every known galactic civilization. Each search returned the same frustrating result. Nothing. The transmission itself was fascinating. Encrypted fragments suggested advanced technological capabilities, hints of complex communication protocols that shouldn't exist for a fictional species. Bits of data suggested human technology that defied current understanding. Adaptive systems, innovative communication networks, and computational methods far beyond what most recognized civilizations could comprehend. Research Director Seok Wan Lee entered the communication center, his long coat swishing against the polished floor. "What have you found, Park?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. Junho pointed to the holographic display. "Sir, this transmission challenges everything we know about human existence. It's not just a random signal. It's structured, intelligent, and carries markers of sophisticated technological development." The research director studied the data, his experienced eyes scanning the complex patterns. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "Interesting," he muttered. "Very interesting." The transmission seemed to hint at something more, a civilization hidden from view, operating beyond conventional galactic understanding. Each decoded fragment revealed tantalizing glimpses of technological prowess and cultural complexity that seemed almost impossible. Junho knew he was standing at the edge of a profound discovery. The Galactic Archives had always been considered the ultimate source of cosmic knowledge. If these records were wrong about humans, what else might they have misunderstood? The communication center's ambient lighting cast soft blue shadows across the room. Advanced computer systems continued processing the mysterious transmission, each algorithm revealing more questions than answers. Junho felt a surge of excitement. This could be the breakthrough that changed everything. Director Lee placed a hand on Junho's shoulder. "Continue your analysis, but be careful. Some secrets are not meant to be uncovered quickly." The transmission continued its enigmatic dance across the holographic display, fragments of data flickering like distant stars. Somewhere in those encrypted signals lay a story waiting to be told, a narrative of a species marked as fictional, yet sending clear evidence of its existence. As the night cycle progressed, Junho Park remained focused. He knew that this moment could rewrite everything humanity understood about its place in the universe. The forgotten record was about to become something much more, a revelation that would challenge the very foundations of galactic knowledge. The transmission pulsed, waited, promised secrets yet to be revealed. The Deep Space Patrol vessel drifted silently through the dark void, its sensors humming with routine monotony. Captain Hyun-Ki sat in the command chair, watching the endless starscape with practiced indifference. Nothing ever happened on these long monitoring missions, until today. A sharp alarm pierced the calm of the bridge. Navigation systems went wild, displaying impossible readings that made no sense. Something was approaching, something that shouldn't exist. The ship's sensors detected an object moving at speeds that defied known physical limitations. It wasn't just fast, it was adaptive, changing its configuration in ways that seemed to break every known rule of space travel. Junho Park, serving as the mission's communications specialist, leaned forward with intense concentration. "Captain," he called out, "we're detecting an unidentified vessel. Its technological signature, it's unlike anything in our records." The vessel appeared suddenly, as if materializing from nothing. Sleek, angular, with hull designs that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. It didn't follow any known design principles of recognized galactic civilizations, no standard communication protocols, no expected approach patterns. Yun Qi's training kicked in. "Defensive positions," he ordered, though something told him this wasn't a typical encounter. The strange ship made no aggressive moves. Instead, it seemed to be studying them. Communication attempts failed. Standard frequency broadcasts returned no response, but the ship's movements were deliberate, intelligent. It matched their vessel's speed, mirrored their trajectory, demonstrated a level of precision that suggested advanced artificial intelligence far beyond current understanding. Junho's hands flew across the communication console. "They're not attacking," he observed. "They're communicating, but not in any way we recognize." Subtle energy signatures began to pulse from the unknown vessel. Complex mathematical patterns, geometric designs that seemed to carry meaning beyond simple visual representation. It was as if the ship itself was a message, a complex, living communication device. Minutes stretched into hours. The two vessels danced through space, an intricate ballet of technological marvel and mysterious intention. Crew members watched in a mix of tension and wonder. This was no ordinary encounter. Suddenly, a burst of data flooded their systems. Not an attack, but a massive information transfer. Terabytes of complex information, scientific formulas, technological blueprints, historical records, all compressed into milliseconds of transmission. "Captain," Junho whispered, "I think we've just made first contact with something extraordinary." The ship began to change. Its hull seemed to ripple, molecular structures adapting in real time. It wasn't just a vessel, it was alive in some fundamental way that challenged everything they understood about technology and space travel. Yun Qi watched in stunned silence. This was more than a discovery. This was a complete rewriting of galactic understanding. Whatever this vessel represented, it was clear that everything they knew about civilizations in the universe was about to change. The strange ship maintained its position, continuing its silent communication. No weapons, no threats, just pure, intense information transfer. Junho's hands trembled slightly as he processed the incoming data. Fragments of information suggested a civilization far more advanced than anything in the galactic archives. Technology that seemed to bend the very laws of physics, communication methods that were more like living thought than traditional signal transmission. "We're being invited," Junho said suddenly, his voice a mix of excitement and disbelief. "Not attacked. Invited to understand." The ship's presence challenged everything. It wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a message, a declaration. Proof of something that had been hidden, forgotten, deliberately kept out of galactic records. Humans. A civilization marked as fictional, now proving they were anything but. As the two vessels continued their silent dance through the infinite darkness, one thing became crystal clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. The Galactic Confederation's central research facility buzzed with unprecedented tension. Jae-hoon, Kim stood at the heart of the chaos, watching as human technological blueprints transformed everything they thought they knew about advanced civilization. What the humans had brought was more than technology. It was a complete reimagining of problem solving. Their first demonstration came through a simple challenge. The Confederation had been struggling with an energy distribution problem that had plagued multiple star systems for decades. Most believed it was an unsolvable mathematical challenge. The human team took exactly 17 minutes to develop a solution. Sungmin Park, the lead research director, couldn't believe his eyes. The solution wasn't just effective, it was elegantly simple. Complex systems reduced to their most fundamental components, then reconstructed with a logic that seemed almost intuitive. "This isn't just technology," Jae-hoon muttered. "This is a completely different way of thinking." The human delegates moved through the research facility like they were born understanding systems most species spent generations trying to comprehend. They didn't just solve problems. They reimagined entire technological frameworks. A communication network that had been deemed impossible was suddenly functional. An energy transfer system that scientists had considered theoretical became a working prototype. Each human presentation challenged fundamental assumptions about technological development. What made their approach unique was its adaptability. Traditional alien technological development followed rigid, predictable patterns. Human technology seemed alive, shifting, changing, learning with each interaction. It wasn't just about solving problems. It was about continuous transformation. The Confederation's senior researchers watched in stunned silence. These humans weren't just bringing technology. They were introducing an entirely new paradigm of understanding. One particular demonstration illustrated their extraordinary approach. A complex quantum communication system that had stumped researchers for generations was redesigned in hours, not through brute computational force, but through an almost intuitive understanding of complex systems. "They're not just solving problems," Sungmin whispered to his colleague. "They're revealing how limited our thinking has been." The human team moved with a curious combination of confidence and humility. They didn't boast. They simply demonstrated, explained, and invited collaborative understanding. Each technological revelation was presented not as a victory, but as an opportunity for collective growth. Their medical technologies were equally revolutionary, healing systems that could adapt to multiple biological structures, diagnostic tools that could predict potential health issues before they manifested, treatment protocols that considered holistic system interactions rather than isolated symptoms. Jae-hoon watched a human researcher explain a neural network design that could potentially revolutionize artificial intelligence development. The explanation was so clear, so fundamentally logical, that it made previous approaches seem almost primitive. What became increasingly clear was that human technological thinking wasn't just different, it was transformative. They didn't see technology as a separate entity. They saw it as an extension of problem-solving, of understanding, of collective potential. The Confederation's oldest researchers began to realize something profound. Humans weren't just bringing technology. They were bringing a completely new way of conceptualizing innovation. Complex challenges that had seemed insurmountable were suddenly being reimagined. Communication protocols, energy systems, medical treatments, computational models. Each domain was being rebuilt from fundamental principles with a flexibility that defied traditional technological development. As the day progressed, the research facility transformed. What had started as a technological presentation became something more, a fundamental reimagining of what was possible. The humans weren't just sharing technology. They were inviting an entire civilization to think differently. And the Galactic Confederation was beginning to understand that being labeled fictional was perhaps the greatest misunderstanding in cosmic history. The Galactic Confederation's Central Council chamber fell silent when the human delegation entered. Wu Jin-kang walked with quiet confidence, his presence alone challenging centuries of established diplomatic protocols. Conflict resolution had always been a complex dance of political maneuvering and carefully negotiated compromises. The humans introduced something entirely different: direct, honest, and unexpectedly effective problem-solving. Two star systems had been locked in a generations-long conflict that seemed impossible to resolve. Previous diplomatic attempts had failed for centuries. The human team spent 3 days understanding the core issues, then proposed a solution that left everyone stunned. Their approach wasn't about winning, it was about understanding. Yoon-ji Choi, the senior Confederation advisor, watched as Wu Jin presented a collaborative framework that addressed the fundamental needs of both conflicting civilizations. It wasn't a compromise. It was a complete reimagining of potential cooperation. The solution was breathtakingly simple. Where previous negotiations had created complex treaties spanning thousands of pages, the human proposal was concise, clear, and focused on mutual growth. They identified the core emotional and resource-based challenges driving the conflict, then proposed a framework that transformed competition into collaborative opportunity. One of the elder Confederation members whispered, "They're not just solving problems. They're changing how we understand problems." Diplomatic channels began to shift. Human representatives didn't approach negotiations as a battle to be won, but as a collective challenge to be solved. They listened. They asked questions. They demonstrated a level of empathy that seemed almost impossible for a species once considered fictional. Their technological innovations began disrupting existing power structures. Communication networks that had been controlled by specific galactic entities became open and accessible. Resource distribution models were reimagined to prioritize collective well-being over individual territorial claims. Economic systems felt the impact most dramatically. Humans introduced adaptive economic models that responded to real-time needs, rather than rigid predetermined structures. They demonstrated how technological innovation could create value, not just extract it. Wu Jin's presentation showed how their approach could transform entire planetary economic systems. Complex challenges became opportunities. Limited resources became pathways for collaborative development. The Confederation's oldest leaders watched with a mix of confusion and growing respect. These humans weren't just bringing new technologies. They were challenging fundamental assumptions about civilization, cooperation, and potential. Conflict zones that had been considered permanently unstable began to show signs of transformation. Human diplomatic teams didn't just negotiate, they listened. They understood the deeper emotional and cultural context driving tensions. One remarkable example involved a multi-system dispute that had lasted over 3 centuries. The human team spent weeks understanding the historical and cultural nuances. Their solution didn't just stop the conflict, it created a framework for genuine understanding and collaborative growth. "We're not here to win," Wu Jin explained, during a critical negotiation. "We're here to understand and create possibilities." The Confederation began to realize something profound. Humans weren't just another civilization. They were a transformative force that challenged every existing understanding of potential. Their approach to systemic challenges was holistic. They didn't see problems as isolated incidents. They saw them as interconnected opportunities for growth and understanding. Political systems, economic structures, conflict resolution, everything was being reimagined. Yunji Choi observed how human representatives moved through complex diplomatic environments. They were direct but compassionate, confident but humble, technologically advanced but fundamentally focused on collective well-being. As days turned into weeks, the impact became clear. The humans were doing more than solving problems. They were teaching an entire galactic civilization how to think differently about challenges, cooperation, and potential. The systemic disruption wasn't about destruction. It was about transformation, and the Galactic Confederation was slowly understanding that being labeled fictional was the greatest mistake in their historical records. The Galactic Archives stood as the most complex information repository in known space. Millions of species histories documented across countless millennia, preserved in crystalline data cores that stretched kilometers in every direction. Junho Park walked through the massive central chamber, his footsteps echoing against pristine white surfaces. Today would change everything. Yunki stood beside him, holding the comprehensive data package that would rewrite galactic understanding. The documentation wasn't just a report, it was a complete reconstruction of human historical existence. Centuries of classification as a fictional species were about to be erased. The archival transformation began quietly. No dramatic speeches, no grand announcements. Just methodical, precise documentation that would fundamentally alter how civilizations understood themselves. Each data point told a story. Human technological evolution, cultural development, survival, against impossible odds. The narrative wasn't about superiority. It was about adaptability, resilience, and unexpected potential. Senior archivists watched in stunned silence as complex algorithms processed the incoming information. Entire historical sections were being rewritten. Theoretical classifications were becoming documented realities. "We're not just adding information," Junho explained to the chief documentation specialist. "We're revealing a narrative that was deliberately hidden." The most shocking revelations weren't technological. They were cultural. Humans demonstrated a capacity for empathy, problem-solving, and collective growth that challenged every existing classification of intelligent life. Quantum. Data cores began reconstructing historical timelines. Each fragment revealed something extraordinary. A species that had survived countless challenges, transformed limitations into opportunities, and maintained a fundamental commitment to collective progress. Yun Qi managed the technical reconstruction. Massive information systems were being updated in real time. What had been a footnote was becoming a comprehensive historical narrative. The archives didn't just record information, they preserved collective memory. And today, that memory was fundamentally changing. Technological markers showed human development wasn't linear, it was adaptive. Each challenge became an opportunity for transformation. Each limitation became a pathway for innovation. Documentation specialists worked through massive datasets, cultural records, technological blueprints, historical narratives. Everything was being carefully verified, cataloged, and integrated into the broader galactic understanding. "This isn't just about humans," one senior archivist muttered. "This is about reimagining what's possible for intelligent life." The transformation wasn't just adding information, it was creating a new framework of understanding. Humans were revealing themselves not as a singular species, but as a complex, multifaceted civilization with extraordinary potential. Junho watched data streams flow through massive holographic displays. Each fragment told a story of survival, innovation, and unexpected resilience. Civilizations that had once dismissed humans were now studying their historical development with intense fascination. By midday, the initial reconstruction was complete. The Galactic Archives had a new classification for humans: emerging transformative civilization, no longer fictional, no longer theoretical, completely, undeniably real. Yun Qi looked at Junho. No words were needed. They had just completed something extraordinary. A complete restoration of a civilization's rightful place in cosmic history. The archives hummed with new energy. Millions of data streams processed the update. Civilizations across the galaxy would soon understand what had been hidden for so long. Humans. Not a myth, not a theory. A remarkable, complex, transformative reality. As the final data stream settled, something profound became clear. The universe was far more extraordinary than anyone had ever imagined.